All right, here's a 6.1 homework where we are calculating the area bounded by some number of curves. For this first question, it's a little bit misleading. They say sketch this region, and then they say decide whether to integrate it with respect to x or y, which is all great. I think that's exactly how you should do these problems. Sketch the region, maybe I'd replace that with, I don't know, go on Desmos and graph the region. But where it says decide whether to integrate with respect to x or y, kind of implies that only one way will work. And I think what you'll see is in question 1 and then again in question 3, you can integrate either with respect to x or with respect to y, whichever way you prefer. So I'm just telling you that you can do 1 or 3 both ways. Maybe you could take a look at the graph and convince yourself that you can do them both ways. And then maybe, I know it's more natural to integrate with respect to x, but maybe you should do one or the other or both with respect to y. I mean, if you really want the practice, you could do this problem twice, once with respect to x and once with respect to y. And I think what you'll find is this problem is not too bad. The numbers work out pretty nicely. But it'd be good practice, and you really want to be good at doing it both ways. Not so much for this section, but for the next two sections, because the next two sections will have to be good with changing our variable of integration. And it'll be a little bit more complicated of a context than you see it in this section. At any rate, that's true for both 1 and 3. For number 2 here, nothing too exciting except that when you graph the two of these guys, I think what you'll see is that it will not work to integrate with respect to one of these two variables. So this time it really is important for you to decide which variable you want to integrate with respect to. And then once you make that decision, you can set up the integral and evaluate it to figure out the area bounded by these two curves. Question 3, I already talked about it a little bit. Question 4, the only thing I want to add here is you're given these two curves and then they also tell you x equals 1. So the fact that they're telling you x equals 1 here might kind of tip what your variable of integration will end up being. And I think if you graph all three of these guys, you'll see that the three of them together enclose a region. I know you're like, wait a minute, shouldn't I have x equals 1 and then also x equals 3 or something to figure out my bounds of integration? But I think if you graph the three of these, you'll see that it encloses a region, and you'll be able to tell the bounds of the region from the graph. And one of those bounds will be x equals 1, and the other bound you'll kind of get based on the intersection of these two curves. Question 5 is more of the same, where they give you two curves and they tell you to decide what you want to integrate with respect to. And again, here it's a really important decision that you make. I think only one of the two ways will work. So be careful on this one. But then set that up and calculate the region and you're good. And then finally, the sixth one, no real hints here except they give you this y equals 5 kind of in the middle of the two curves. And I feel like that's a little bit confusing. Here's the two curves, 2y equals 4 square root of x and 2y plus 4x equals 8. So you have those two curves, and then they also give you one of the lines, y equals 5. They don't give you both lines, but same as in question 4, I think if you graph the three of these guys, you'll see that that gives you a region, and then the bounds of that region, one of the bounds will be 5, and the other bound you can kind of get from the intersection of these two curves. Hope that all makes sense to everybody. That is this homework assignment.